Dandala. Well, welcome everybody. Yes, indeed, we are live on air. I'm looking on our monitor right now and I see a wonderful logo. And we have a house full of guests here today, as you can probably see as we're zooming in. I am, of course, Mal Burns. Sitting next to me is Tori Yates, who will be coming to us shortly before I introduce all our other guests. But this is the Inworld Review, our sort of open-ended chat show where we discuss all the latest and greatest and maybe not so great in the world of both Second Life and the open metaverse, the hypergrid, and everything you could really want to call it. Now, if you were listening, watching last week's show, you'll know that one of the main points of discussion was Linden Labs' new approach, maybe due to the US Treasury, to in-world exchanges, or rather any in-world exchange that is not theirs. During the course of the week, there's been a few changes, rather fast-moving for Linden Labs. You really don't expect them to move so quick, but within a couple of days, I won't say they were backtracking, but they were offering various compromises as to third-party exchanges. But we are going to be discussing that in much greater detail in a while. And many of my normal headlines to do with the greater metaverse, so to speak, and the hypergrid, as you know, I get lots of links via Maria Korolov at Hypergrid Business, and she's actually joining us on today's show. So I don't really know if I need some of those now. We'll get to them a wee bit later. Just flipping back, for those of you who are watching us live, you've obviously been seeing the prelude clips over on Week in Review. We had a nice little machinima about an amazing hero cat, which is always a nice lightweight way to start the show in the absence of any tinies. That was followed by an audio appeal for the Second Life 10th birthday community celebration. We did have a video of that, but unfortunately we've been told not to use it, so you got the audio instead. We also had a little demo of a traffic system working in Unity 3D. We had a look at the Leonardo da Vinci's birthplace, a promo for that in Second Life. We had Drastic Dupre as ever talking to a mocap creator. Mocap being motion capture animation, which makes people's movements in OpenSim and Second Life look somewhat more realistic than the defaults. We also had a very, very short clip from Philip Rosedale's new project, High Fidelity, which showed them actually wearing their Google Glass. They have a Google Glass to play with, and moving an avatar. Not, I hasten to add, a Linden Lab avatar. It was a strictly new way Philip Rosedale avatar, I think, moving using Google Glass as an interface. I then did a short piece myself, 90 minutes. I just popped along to a build called Ascension at the Atelier yesterday, and by complete coincidence, Persia Bravin was involved with that and is also here in the studio today. But I was attracted to it because, as usual, I saw there was also a hunt involved. So I went there trying to find my crystal orbs or whatever they were called, and eventually succeeded when I realized they were scattered around the sim and not all at the starting point on the ground. And then we finished off with just a look at a Second Life sim called Sardinga, which is celebrating its 6th birthday. There are much more machinimas and arts films and stuff to come up later, but that will be after our little in-world epic here is complete. And you know us, that could be anything from half an hour to 2 hours, because we like to keep it ad lib and sort of open here. Right. I shall just have I'm just having a quick scan my list here to see if there's anything here that isn't a link to Maria, which we will come back to later. Yes, there was something called a virtual roundtable conference at the end of the week, but in fact, it barely touched on virtual worlds at all. It was more educators talking about online sort of things. It was interesting, but it wasn't virtual, so I'm not really going to go that far. Rod Humble, who of course is the CEO of Linden Labs these days, let out during the week that Oculus Rift is already up and functioning in Second Life, but not publicly, but they're working with the drivers and everything else to make it incredible. As we discussed on the previous show, the Oculus Rift at the moment does not have any headphones and or mic or anything else, and it also prevents you from seeing your keyboard. So it may be a great visual experience that is severely lacking in any other kind of input. But nevertheless, Second Life have been jumping on it, and as we already know from several months ago, Linden Labs have also taken on board the oh God, I've been going on about it for Leap, yes, the Leap device, which is a tiny little motion sensor gadget that plugs into a USB port and has its own drivers and allows you to sort of flap your hands at the screen and do various things. Apparently, it's 200 times as powerful as Microsoft's Kinect, which is a good sign. And the only criticism I've heard about it so far is that it isn't actually very accurate on very small things like pinching fingers. It tends to be, its sensor mechanisms tend to be broad sweep based and not perfect for doing fine detail like drawing a signature on screen or getting into the minutiae of the virtual world in front of you. Anyhow, those are quite interesting. But what did come up today is, yes, another company have started up, and they're called Meta Glasses. And their aim is, believe it or not, to place virtual reality worlds at your fingertips. And what they seem to be coming out with is something that they see being used for virtual worlds and similar stuff. But in terms of the look and behavior of the thing, it's more like a Google Glass. In other words, it's not a cantankerous old style object you stick all over your head. You just wear them like glasses. So it seems that these things come up, and before you know it, there's another Kickstarter or whatever starting up with yet another device that does much the same thing. But in my experience, the more lightweight and manageable it is, the better. I have to wear glasses when I'm looking at my screen these days, and for me, that is bad enough. I always feel uncomfortable with contraptions on, and right now I'm wearing headphones, not virtually of course, but I'm wearing headphones and a pair of glasses and with a mic sticking up my nose, and that combination is more than enough really for me. If I have a nice little USB sensor as well, fine, but nothing too cumbersome. Please for me. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Tara Yates, my partner, who's over, well, a long way from me. I'm actually in London. She's over in the Pacific Northwest, but this is the virtual world and you would never know it. So here she is with her roundup of the week. Welcome, Tara.
Indeed. Thank you, Mel. Yes, it is a long ways away in the RL sim, but in virtual space, it's only a small amount of latency betwixt and between. And welcome from this corner of the swamp, where it has in the usual scheme of things, I usually comment on the weather. And after a couple of weeks of wonderful sunny weather, we've been into more typical May weather for this part of the world, where it's raining. It can't make up its mind. It's not raining at the moment, but it probably will be later. Anyhow, now I don't know if Pet Love has panned out sufficiently, but in our ongoing sagas here of various critters, I ran across one this week, and this is actually a brand new release from Botanical. And this is Mesh, and Mesh is known. This is Tui, who is a carnivorous plant, and there are copies of Tui on either end of the seated people. So we hope that nobody falls in and gets gobbled up before the day is out. The one disappointment with Tui is that unfortunately Tui does not have any animations, at least not that I've been able to determine so far. There is a carnivorous plant who actually eats avatars and you likely have stumbled into it at some point. And if not, you should, because it's fairly entertaining. Anyhow, so welcome to TUI on either end of the stage from Botanical. I'm something of a botanical fan, so I always, this is something kind of out of the ordinary for Chris Lehman, but pretty fun. Yes, okay. Certainly, congrats to Joe Yardley on getting the jump on, yes, Oculus Rift, and in specific in orchestrating getting the CEO of Oculus together with Rod Humble via IM, which obviously has fueled some of the conversation going on and the work being done at the lab in actively pursuing getting the Oculus to work. And of course, the real kicker in this was the part of her quote from him in her little conversation with Rod later about Oculus and them, the lab, having it up and running and working with it. And he said, but Second Life and Oculus Rift is like having dinner with Stefan Zweig and Peter Altenberg, and you have to be a serious, obscure writer intellectual in order to know who either of these people are. I must admit, after I looked, I had not read anything by either of these guys, and they're both sort of turn of the century, so kind of early modernism. At least one of them was acquainted with Freud, so you can draw your own confusions from that remark. Anyhow, yes, it's my Oculus Rift is still sitting here, and I really do need to get it plugged in and download software and see what it's all about. Having sprung for the support end of it to get the developer kit. And as I commented before, the one thing that I can say that I disagree with a few early comments, and the early comments being that it's lightweight. And the reality is it isn't lightweight if you're coming from point zero. It may very well be lightweight compared to other headgear that has been fiddled with over the last however many years. But if you put these on, it's not like putting on headphones by any stretch. And if you've seen the video clip of the 90-year-old woman who's fitted out with an Oculus Rift headset, and you may notice the kind of the screen capture that starts that is her with her hands up on either side of the Rift. And the reality is she's doing that to hold the darn thing up because they're heavy. They're not light. So anyway, that's enough on that one. I'm glad the lab is pursuing it, because I think Second Life is very much a natural for that sort of device. I'm sure that Marie is going to have may have some comments to say about the a rather rapid announcement this week on Linden Lab launching an official reseller program to allow authorized third parties to sell Lindens. I guess that to me the interesting thing about this was one of the clauses in the agreement. Very to my mind clearly is an indication that this entire thing is because of U.S. Treasury guidelines that have come down, and the lab jumping through appropriate hoops so they keep themselves on the right side of the law. And specifically, there's a clause in the highly restrictive reseller terms of service that says the reseller shall take commercially reasonable measures to avoid and ensure that its service providers and processors take such measures to avoid downloading, exporting, or re-exporting, or otherwise selling Linden dollars into, or using a financial institution located in or to a national or resident of Cuba, Iran, North Korea, Sudan, Syria, or any other country to which the United States has embargoed goods, or subset 2, to anyone on the United States Treasury Department's list of specially designated nationals or the United States Commerce Department's table to deny orders. So I think that tells you something right there. Sounds like it's straight out of U.S. Treasury Department gobbledygook.
Right.
but nonetheless, the good news is that certainly people who have been using beer walks and a number of others, ANSI X, Bolito, V4X, Zoha Islands, amongst others. That's the initial list. Can now sell lindens. What's still missing in the equation is any other way other than via the Lindex to cash out lindens. So merchants who have been using Fair Walks or one of the others to get earnings out of Second Life into their bank accounts are stuck with using the existing Linden Lab Lindex channel through PayPal. There was something in the, I think it was encouraging in the official blog post on this, that Linden Lab has taken notice of the complaints about how long it's taking to process cash outs, and is looking to make improvements in that. So, and I would certainly hope that would be the case, given the fact that United States banking policy does require people to get credit, for deposits to be credited. I think it's within 2 days of when they're made. So I would hope that would also apply in this case, at least for domestic, and that the international trade end of it would not be slowed down as slow as it is apparently right now. So enough of that for now. We'll probably come back around on that some more. I'm looking forward to seeing if Maria has any comments on that from the OpenSim perspective. Let's see, just a couple of items going on. Today is the 5th anniversary of Bay City, and they're having a bit of a celebration. They've had a parade, and they have performers and musicians going on all afternoon. So if you, when this show is over, if you feel like wandering over, I can give you one landmark, Bay City, Harwich, on the map, and there's some other regions involved, but that'll probably get you to where you can find a notepad, or at least if you look for Bay City, Harwich on the map, and then look for the biggest concentration of green dots, you'll find out where the music is. Also going on at the moment is a World Goth Fair. Started on Wednesday and will run through the end of the month. Some 75 merchants from across Second Life are participating, and it's being held in 2 regions. Cursed, which is an adult sim, and Port Seraphine, which is a moderate sim. So if you aren't into adult sims, you can go to Port Seraphine. And this is as well as showcasing some top designers who supply the goth market. This event is also aimed at raising funds for the Sophie Lancaster Foundation, a UK-based charity that was founded in the wake of the brutal murder of Sophie Lancaster, a young woman who was killed for being a goth. And it's officially sanctioned by the organizers of World Goth Day. And I share that with the usual caveat. I have not vetted the organization, or that the means by which they are assuring that donations actually end up in the foundation's hands. So leave that to you to do. And the last item on my list, which I'm sure is top of the list for Saffia to talk about, is the upcoming Home and Garden Expo, which starts next weekend. And on that note, I'm going to toss it back to you, Mel.
Indeed. Well, thank you, Tara. I did a bit of a disappearing out while you were talking. I was listening, but I had to relog because I've got a slight problem with what we call lip flap. Which my mouth is not moving as I'm talking. And I've logged back in. Everything looks okay, except that I'm still not seeing any lip flap. So I think Linden lag has hit the lip flap. Bit of poetry there. Linden lag lip flap. You'll have to bear with it, folks. If my mouth ain't moving, it ain't moving, but I'm still talking, or something like that. Anyway, thank you, Tara. Many of you know, I actually plow through fashion feeds and stuff every day. Cursory. I don't Twitter them or anything else. I leave that to. There's plenty of syndicates around that do that. But I do sort of snoop and see what's going on, see costumes I like, and props that I might be able to use in machinima, that sort of stuff. And I must say, the goth fair has been everywhere, although surprisingly, and this is just a personal opinion, um, of the many posts, not many of them have struck me as being particularly goth. I won't say they're ungoth, but they're not what I sort of think of as goth. But that is some very fine fashion on display from there, and so well worth checking out. And as Tara mentions, of course, it is the Bay City 6th anniversary events happening all day. One person who's normally in our chat room and isn't here today is Daniel Voyager, because he's actually live blogging the event. But curiously, as Tara was speaking, I was looking at my little info window in Second Life that tells you he's logging in and out, and I'm seeing Daniel Voyager come in and out like a yo-yo. So I suspect that the Linden Lag has hit Bay City. You can usually tell when people are logging in and out so rapidly that some servers somewhere are getting rather overstretched. Anyway, that is life. So I'd like to introduce you to everybody who's on our panel today. Now, not sitting next to me, she's actually at the, I don't think she's going to be around for the whole show. So she's also sitting near the end today. We have, of course, as usual, Saffia Widdershins. Hi, Saffia.
Hello, Mal. Good to be here.
And I've no doubt Bay City and indeed Home and Garden and everything else will be on your agenda shortly. Mm-hmm. I'm also going to bring in the other folks that we've got here because it's a sort of free-form discussion here by and large after we've each got our pictures out the way, so to speak. And there are some new guests. Firstly, I'd like to introduce Persia Bravin, who's kind of an old friend, really, although our previous broadcasting involvement was with something rather off the wall, which is Miss Virtual World. I know you from there, Persia, don't I, principally?
Indeed, indeed. For those not familiar with Miss Virtual World, it is an annual beauty pageant here in Second Life, and it's probably the hardest bit of work out of all of the work that I do in World, because the shows tend to last for 7 hours, and even I find it hard to continue talking non-stop for 7 hours as the host. But yeah, thanks to Metaverse TV, that's how I know you, isn't it really, Mel? Thank you.
Indeed. I'll certify the 7-hour ordeal. It's probably not quite as bad as like the Relay for Life telethon and Virtual Worlds practices, both of which are coming up midsummer. But yeah, it's quite a slog, and it always is an epic in more ways than one. It's such a production that, you know, if anything can go wrong, it will. So you've really got to minimize the chances before it starts. But it's always a Frolic really always puts on the, you know, builds some mammoth sets, and, you know, it's a real spectacular to watch. If nothing else, so that is great. Okay, but you are going to be talking a little bit more with Saffia about the Home and Garden, so we'll come around to that in a minute. I'm also overjoyed to have back today Honor McMillan. Hasn't been here for a few weeks. We'll be hopefully looking at interesting places, which
Hello,
is...
Mel.
Hi, Honor. That is something you always do so well. Every day, another destination, as we say. So we love it. And finally, really honoured to, very last minute too, so thank her for coming at the very last minute. We've got Maria Korolov here, who many of you will know as the person behind a hypergrid business, which is certainly I dare to call it a blog, really, but it's more like a newspaper. When it comes to events outside Second Life, in other words, on OpenSims, on the hypergrid, the greater metaverse, Maria's blog is a minefield of information, and much of what I post on my main Twitter stream links through there, and most of my highlights at the beginning of the week feature links to Maria's site. So welcome, Maria. I'm glad to have you here.
Well, thanks, Mel, for having me. I always love talking about this stuff.
I know you're also in World in Second Life now and again, so I'm sure some of the Second Life topics will enthuse you too. But of course, you last week we had a creator on. In a Second Life creator, in fact, and we were discussing the restrictions that Linden Labs had put on the exchanges, and he was fellow Brit actually. He was explaining, how it could possibly affect him, and especially international customers of Linden Lab, basically. But again, we'll move into this as things go by. I'd like to now hand over the voice, as it were, to Saffia to bring us up to date. I should also mention, of course, we did let you know last week that Designing Worlds last Monday had an exclusive show with I think, Saffia, you're very fond of saying that the Lindos are like London buses. You wait ages for one, and then 4 turn up at once. Well, you did have 4 of them, and very interesting they were too, because 2 were talking about materials and 2 were talking about server-side baking and stuff. So it was really fascinating show. So you might want to give us your reflections on that too. But anyway, I'll hand the mic over to you now, so to speak.
Thank you, Mal. Yes, that was a really fascinating show. We'd been kind of sitting on it because we knew it was coming up, and we were very excited about it. Not just because we actually got 4 people from the lab on the show, which was nice, but really because of the content of it. We thought it was really very exciting. Especially, we went over to Hippotopolis, which is Oz Linden's place, and anyone can actually go over there and look at these things for themselves. We examined some of the materials that they have been working with, and what's quite nice is that they are working very closely with Second Life creators like June Dion of Bear Rose, who made the katana that we showed on the show, which is wonderfully detailed and reflects the light magnificently. And so it's a great show. But we've got another goodie coming up tomorrow. We're actually doing a Bay City show tomorrow to celebrate their 5th birthday. And what I hadn't realised ahead of going there was that it's an immensely the Lindens were heavily involved in its creation, but they're still very involved in building the moles and so forth. And it's really wonderful to see how it works as a cooperation between the lab and residents. And you just wish that it happened rather more, because it produces such really brilliant results. So that'll be tomorrow's show. And then we're all off to the Home and Garden Expo to film. We've got 2, count them, not 1, but 2 shows coming from the Home and Garden Expo. And we've also got an episode of Happy Hunting coming from there as well. But Persia can probably tell us a lot more about the Home and Garden plans, because she's been handling press and publicity for it, I believe.
Okay, cue Persia then. Maybe you'd like
Hello
to
again.
Hello again. Tell all the Home and Garden Show.
Okay. Going back 2 months now, I was actually head of media and PR for Fashion for Life, which is obviously the fashion equivalent, if you like, of the upcoming Home and Garden Expo, all of which has been designed and instigated here in SL to raise both funds and also awareness on behalf of the Relay for Life charity, which is obviously directly involved with the American Cancer Society in real life. And Fashion for Life was so much fun. It was gargantuan in its planning and execution, and but just basically fun. And I really missed the buzz of it. It was 9 Sims full of the finest SL fashion and designers. So obviously I got to know Nikki Matheson, who is event chair for Relay for Life at the moment. And My other great love in SL, other than fashion, is obviously homes and interiors. So it was a combination of having a conversation with Nikki, and I said, "Oh, do you want a little bit of help, doing PR?" And she was like, "Yes, yes, please, if you can." So that's basically how I got involved with the Home and Garden Expo this year. Very exciting because basically it is 8 sims that are going to be full completely of the very best homes, gardens, landscaping, interior design projects. There's also 2 sims just for breedables, with 30 exhibitors from the breedable sector here in SL, 120 designers from homes and gardens, and an entertainment sim too, with a genuinely jam-packed entertainment schedule this year. So it's all going really well. I've been helping to recruit bloggers, doing press releases, that kind of thing. Being extra nice in advance, more than normal, to Brett Linden and Morgan Linden, who are massive, massive help. Jessica Line from Firestorm too. So this week we're really going great guns, and it's going to be publicised everywhere. And just really looking forward to a fantastic expo, really. Fashion for Life itself raised 5.5 million Linden dollars in the week that it ran, which is the equivalent, I think, of approximately 21,000 US. So it'd be great if we could match that with the Home Expo too. So everyone, please come and shop.
Great. I think I think in coming weeks I'll probably be having Deuce Dragonash on this program about another cancer-related thing that we're working on at the moment. But it's quite funny. We got an offer of help from somebody from Fashion for Life a couple of days ago, and they turned out really enthusiastic about real fashionista sort of person, which wasn't really relevant. But they seemed they said, "Oh, Relay for Life is over." I beg your pardon, but fashion for Life may be over, but Relay for Life is not over. In fact, it's barely a month of the year when it isn't running. Now, Saffia, of course, I think you're going to be doing talks, aren't you, at the garden?
Yes,
I don't know where we'll get a chance to film some of them, but maybe you'd like to tell us.
Well, you're very welcome. We've got talks going on, I think, every day at 3 p.m. and some days at 5 p.m. as well. And we're talking to various designers and breedable creators. And we'll be talking to them about their work, about issues that interest them. We're probably going to have, well, we definitely are. We've got 1 slot booked for a mesh talk, and I'm hoping to round up the crew who did the mesh talks at the Christmas Expo. I had Chris Lehrman, Max Graf, Cube Republic, and Loz Hyde on the platform. I had people like Isla Galak in the audience joining in, Angie Mornington. That was absolutely amazing because, the talks are scheduled to last for an hour. And that one started, I think, at 5 p.m. And I could have gone to bed at 6, 2 p.m., that which is 2 a.m. for me in the UK. But, at 8 p.m. I bailed on them and basically said, lock up for yourselves, guys. Just post the key through the letterbox and, we'll... But yeah, the talks are actually wonderful because it's a really good chance for people to find out about their favorite designers and creators, and that's one part of it. But the other thing that's always really fun about them is that they come to each other's talks and start asking questions and sharing ideas. So from being like a presentation, they quite often turn into a kind of design jamming session, and that is just awesome to be a part of. So yeah, we'll be doing those at 3 p.m. every day.
I seem to be remember being there last year, actually, when there was a conversation with design going on about, joining prims to make a convex holes and things. And it was so funny because it was in passing, and then it suddenly became a sort of, we didn't know you could do that. And then everybody was sort of getting wholly into the idea of joining two prims together to make them one convex hole and counting as landing back one instead of two. Interesting stuff. So yes, it was very interactive last year. So yeah, hopefully we can do that. Now, you weren't here last week, Saffia. Hope you had a nice week off. We the discussion inevitably last week went into the business of the Lindex and at that point in time at least was a termination of arrangements with any third party exchanges. But during the week, Lindens have done a surprisingly fast backtrack in part. Tara sort of summarised it a bit. I love the way she read out that Treasury requirement thing. I'll have to record a replay of that later to figure it all out. But I'm really glad that Maria Korolov's joined us today, because if anybody is on the ball about these things, and also potentially how this will affect OpenSIM, because these exchanges often work on. I know for certain that there's one where I could take some spare Lindens and convert it into a grid currency without touching real life currency at all, as it were. It just acts as an exchange for that, and I don't, for example, know where that's possible anymore. It's not something I do very much. I don't really get into the business side of things, but. Your thoughts, Maria, on both what Linden Lab have done and also how it may affect the sort of open exchanges? Oh, have I lost Maria?
Oh, I'm here. Oh. I had my mic turned off because I was coughing.
Oh, yeah. I should. I'm told. Cough, cough, cough. I'm told I should do that sometimes as well.
Yes.
You always forget. But yeah. It's
yeah. Yeah. So anyway, I mean, obviously, big impact on business in Second Life, because so many people are in Europe and other places where they can't use the Lindex. But for the big impact for OpenSIM would have been if Virvox shut down, and they're a huge European exchange. They're out of Austria. They do millions, tens of millions or billions, some huge amount of transactions of Linden dollars every year, and they also back the OMC virtual currency, which is the Open Metaverse currency, which is used on about 30 different grids. Now, it's not used a lot by these 30 different grids. Virvox isn't doing that much to promote it, but as we get hypergrid security turned on this summer, which is going to be a big thing, we might start seeing some more hypergrid shopping. If the Virvox went down, we'd lose the OMC currency as well. So the fact that the Virvox is back up, even if it's just to sell Lindens to people, not to buy them back, just the fact that the company is still running is good news for OpenSIM and for the Open Metaverse currency. So what else were you asking about?
Well,
while I was coughing.
No, basically a general summary there, both of the situation with Linden Labs, of course, and the effect on OpenSIM. So you've sort of answered that, really. There are actually quite a lot of exchanges. Ziggy, who was on last week, his anecdote was the fact that he makes a pretty good real living out of Second Life, but he was saying, he doesn't go out much, too busy working in World and stuff like that. But he might fancy going out for a Chinese meal one evening or something, and he can quite, as things stood, he was quite easily able to draw out of his Linden account and actually have the money in his pocket. He's also got a PayPal debit card, which I'd never heard of, and he can quite literally draw the money sourced from Second Life into his pocket instantly and go and buy his meal. And, the speed of that transaction is phenomenal. But, of course, he can't get anything like that speed by trying to draw it out of Linden Labs. Firstly, it's in the UK. And secondly, even if it wasn't in the UK, I don't think Linden Labs are quite so eager to part with money so quickly. You know, there's a whole rigmarole, I believe, they go through before they actually cough up outgoing money. And, you know, the speed, you know, it struck me that the speed of transactions, especially in what we call the third world, where somebody might be able to draw out the same amount and buy, I don't know, 12 Chinese meals if they can get them. You know, where the value of the American dollar, which it's tied to, is actually very, very high. So it can really be a useful source of real life income in third world countries. And I suddenly thought this speed thing is of the essence in financial transfers. And, you know, if that speed is going to be affected, it's really could sort of harm businesses. You know, the motivation for doing things if the system doesn't move fast could be.
Well, the speed is one issue. The lack of access is a slightly bigger issue, because yes, people can now buy lindens on third-party exchanges, but they can't sell them. So if they can't get to the Lindex to buy lindens, they're certainly not going to be able to get to the Lindex to sell them. And that is a problem for anybody doing business in Second Life and withdrawing real money. And like you mentioned, third world economies in particular, where you can withdraw say a nice chunk of the of spending money from Linden Lab. For me, the bigger worry is that if Linden Labs shuts down Linden sales totally. And this is something I've been following. I've been a financial services reporter for about 15 years now, and I write about virtual currencies outside of hypergood business for in a broader scheme of things. And there's regulatory attention paid to virtual currencies as they get big. So now it takes time. Regulators work very slow and they work very inconsistently. But at the end of the day, if it looks like a virtual currency and acts like a virtual currency, the regulators are going to want to regulate it as a virtual currency. And in practice, if you could buy lindens, keep lindens for a while, and then turn them back into real dollars, that is not that different from putting money into a bank or into a prepaid card and then withdrawing the money again.
Yeah.
Now they can call it different things. They can call it a game token. They can call it virtual access. They can call it a license to use an in-game feature. But if you're putting money in and at some point taking that money out, that's a financial transaction. So PayPal, for example, started out without much oversight. Over time, as they got big, they had to get licensed as a financial services company or get out of business. PayPal decided to get licensed, and over time, country by country, as regulators woke up to it, they would get either a banking license or a money transmittal license or some other kind of financial license to do business, because they're dealing with people's real money. There's a reason why regulators care about this, because voters care about this, because it's real money is at stake. So as the Linden economy grows big, hopefully it will get bigger and not keep getting smaller. But if the Linden economy starts getting big again, maybe the Oculus Rift will bring in some more people, the regulators might start paying attention to it again. Or it might get caught up in a general sweep of virtual currencies because of the Bitcoin hype, which is what it looks like is happening right now. Because Bitcoin got so much attention, there's so much fraud out there, there's so much shady stuff going on that regulators are looking at it, and Linden Labs might be getting caught up in the crossfire. So, but at the end of the day, so here's the choice that they might have to make. I'm not saying they will, but there's a chance that they will have to make the choice between getting a financial license or partnering with a company that has a financial license, which a lot of like merchants do. They'll partner with a bank or a credit card company to issue a branded card, or they will have to make a good faith effort to shut down Linden sales, and to make the Linden a totally fictional currency. Like you have the gold coins in Mario Brothers. I'm a millionaire in Mario Brothers or in Farmville, but I cannot withdraw that money because it's a pure in-game currency.
Yeah.
And so they don't have to license it. They don't have to worry about anything. It's just a game. Like Monopoly money. If you come to my house to play Monopoly and you win the game, you don't get to keep all that money and trade it in for real dollars, you know? Even though you can buy Monopoly money in a store, right? It's still not actual cash. You know.
It's very odd because, you know, I go down to my local supermarket and I will buy an iTunes card to top up my iTunes account, but they also sell Facebook credit cards and all sorts of things. And it occurs to me, you know, you're handing over all money for this card and you're getting that much value out of the card. But the Facebook points or whatever they call them, you put them in, you never get them out. They're simply stuff to play with. Even iTunes, you can buy your app, you can download some music, but when it comes to a crunch, you don't own it. There was, I think it was Bruce Willis who tried to write, has a huge music collection and tried to bequeath it to his niece. And Apple told, you know, despite the value of it, Apple said, yeah, sorry, you don't own it. You know, you can't bequeath your iTunes library to somebody. You can bequeath your CDs to somebody, but not your iTunes library. So, you know, you have to question what the value is. You know, you've literally only got the right to personally stream it to yourself.
It's the difference between a closed loop and an open loop currency. With if it has value, if you can get it back out again. And so if iTunes card can only be used at iTunes, it's a closed loop. A lot of shopping stores have that. If it can be used generically, if you can get up to an ATM and withdraw cash on it, it's an open loop card. And usually people will partner with an existing bank or credit card to do it. Like they will partner with Visa or somebody for them to do the financial part of it. Now, if Linden Lab switches to a perfectly virtual currency, that means that nobody can cash out except accredited business partners. So, for example, you mentioned Facebook credits. Facebook can make a deal with somebody like, I don't know, Walmart. Walmart can put a little virtual store inside Farmville or some other Facebook game, and people can spend money there. And Walmart can cash out that money as under a partnership with Facebook, and Facebook will take a 30% cut of these transactions.
Okay.
Same thing if you go to iTunes and you buy music. Well, the artist who sold you the music gets money for it. The artist gets to cash out of iTunes, right?
Yeah.
So the user of the card can't cash out, but the this publishing company that makes the books and the music and everything else gets to cash out of iTunes. So the same thing would need to happen with Linden Lab. People would have to have a business-to-business relationship with Linden Lab. Now they might be arguing that that's the case already, because when you withdraw money from Lindex, you have to give them your tax identification number, and they report it as earnings if you make more than $600 a year or whatever the rules are. But they might have to tighten up those requirements. So it's not like everybody can withdraw this money. Anybody who buys linens can then sell linens. And that could be a very big blow to in-world commerce, the land business, and everything else. So you have two potential strikes here. One is if foreigners have trouble taking money out of the Lindex because they've trouble accessing the system. And the second potential blow is if everybody has trouble getting money out of the Lindex because they tighten up those requirements to be more in line with the closed loop currency regulations. So those are very big things that I'm worried about.
I think so, and the international side of it too. I mean, for example, if I work in America, for example, for a given period of time, would be paying taxes in America, and likewise in the UK, you pay taxes in the UK. But there are systems in place, that define, where the declarable taxes are, and it seems to me that the system with Lindens is very much geared to America. I know,
Yep,
it's
yes.
American companies, the American servers there. But, things like the rules that the US Treasury put in place are not necessarily rules that Linden Lab customers in other parts of the world have to comply with. They probably have to comply with rules of some sort, but not necessarily the same ones and the same terminology. So it seems to me that the closed loop thing, which may be the future of Linden Labs, will actually, especially if they're going to be doing stuff on their other apps on the iPad, will have currencies that are closed looped.
Yep.
So they may go down that path, but to me, that would seriously, I think, but people are making a real world income out of Second Life will be seriously affected, and people who are internationally who are making any income whatsoever will, it seems to be adversely affected. And at the end of the day, if people can't see Linden Labs platform as a work environment, because getting paid is part of that, unless you do it all in back channels and just do the business in virtual worlds, but don't use Linden's currency, make private transfers between parties. It seems to be very difficult. I wonder if you have any thoughts on this, Saffia, because you're very in tune with all these different aspects of creatives in Second Life. A lot of the people you talk to and cover in designing worlds are actually making a living or a part living out of what they do, aren't they? And I would think, do you have any idea of how they'll be affected?
I think there's already been a few problems with the changeover, not just because of the access issue, not being able to access PayPal and things. Quite a few people can access PayPal, but they are getting better rates from their local exchanges than they are from the Lindex. Another problem that has cropped up has been that because people have been using their local exchanges and not using the Lindex, some very considerable traders, some very considerable merchants whose entire real life income really depends on their Second Life, were classified as being like new customers and only able to convert a very small amount of money because they hadn't used the Lindex before. Fortunately, when these are merchants in good standing, this situation seems to have been rectified pretty quickly. I think the Lindens are a bit on the horns of a dilemma here. I think that they are as anxious for everyone else. They know what is keeping the economy ticking over is the presence of real currency and people making real money out of it. You close that down and people may just go off and do something else. They'll start designing apps to sell on smartphones or whatever. So they have to, I think that they really do want to keep the creatives here, and I think they will be eager to keep some sort of financial system, genuine financial system going. As Maria says, it could end up being something that is a little more... that could end up being a little more official, that could actually be done through a partnership with a bank or something. But I don't think we will see it go to an entirely virtual currency. They would just lose everyone. They would just lose.
I was going to say, I can't see them pulling the plug on the ability to cash out Lindens and turn Lindens into real money, unless they are anxious to completely scuttle Second Life, because the number of people who would walk, I think, would be real noticeable. And the number of creatives who would say,
in addition to people being annoyed that they couldn't take their money out and put it in their bank account, I'd like to point out that there's a very high percentage of people who pay their tier by earning Lindens in Second Life and then using Lindex or whatever the hell it is they use to convert it to American dollars that then sit in their account and pay their tier. So Linden Labs would suddenly lose a giant source of income if Lindex couldn't convert to American dollars. That's not a reasonable prediction, I don't think.
That's a very good point, because
I mean, it's not feasible that would happen. There are a number of things that have to happen to satisfy the financial regulatory position within the United States. The additional issue is that, I mean, when I'm a foreigner, I may live within miles of Terra, but I'm a foreigner. When I convert Lindens to US dollars and then move it into PayPal, it takes about 90 minutes. Now then PayPal takes 3 days to stick it into my account, but Linden to PayPal is a very short period of time. And I'm convinced that if I was moving giant amounts of money, that probably wouldn't be true. But it wouldn't be true because of the issues around money laundering, right? There's certain levels where things kick in and stuff has to take a period of time. And I suspect that's one of the reasons for the time lag. The other might be distance and types of countries, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't think it's ever going to happen that the Lindex won't be able to convert currency, and that you as an individual would have to be an official partner in order to do that, because they'd lose a major source of their income and the lab would collapse.
Exactly. I mean,
you would think that, but what I'm worried about is the short-term thinking that sometimes you see
even short-term thinking
where they're not putting it through. Like, for example, shutting off all these exchanges overnight, it seemed that Second Life is totally missing the point that these people are buying Lindens on the exchange, on these third-party exchanges, giving money to Second Life. That this is a source of income for Second Life, not just competitors who were trading Lindens and making money that Second Life would have been making otherwise.
Somehow I seriously can't imagine a Linden Lab lawyer sitting down with U.S. government agencies and saying, oh, but they're sending us money from these third parties. No, we don't control them. No, they don't necessarily follow the regulations. No, we can't tell you money laundering is not taking place. But geez, hun, they send us money. That isn't going to be a winning argument.
Well, but they found an answer. Just have them buying the Lindens and not selling them. So, but what I'm saying is that they didn't have this internal discussion a week ahead of time. The way that this happened, after the fact, after everybody panicked and all this other stuff, I mean, it indicates a lack of thinking this through. So the question I'm asking is Linden Lab thinking, well, all these people are cashing out. They're taking money away from us. If they're forced to not cash out and keep Lindens in the system, it would prop up our currency and let us keep all this cash.
Which is destroy the currency.
I agree. Yeah. I think it would destroy the currency, and I think it would do irreparable harm to Second Life. And I think it's really obvious. But then it was really obvious to me and to a lot of people that shutting down third-party exchanges, both the buying and the selling, was also going to do serious harm to Second Life.
See, I wonder how much choice they had in that. I have my feeling is that they probably got the word they had to do that with very little notice. Yeah.
That would be my read of things too. That they had to jump and they jumped.
And now they're kind of working back from that position.
Yeah,
it reminds
the lack of community consultation was, I think, the most shocking part for everyone. I mean, none of us, whether you actually export Lindens or not, were aware of this move happening. You log into SL and you basically have to sign a brand new agreement on the login screen, which was how the majority of us found out that this massive and very wide sweeping change actually happened in World. And I immediately contacted to the people who I work alongside here in SL, who are both big designers, Vista Animations and also Ego Is Me, who both earn 100% real life living from what they produce here within SL. And they were both really quite logical about this new move, and they'll find ways around it, even though both of them have been using third party. But I think it was the sheer panic. And like Saffia just said, it does feel now a little bit like Linden Lab are having to kind of work backwards from a point that they've been forced into. So I guess we're going to see the reality of this unfold much more now over the coming weeks.
It's
I
funny,
think one thing that suggested that to me quite strongly was that support people were really jumping to help merchants and businesses that had problems because of this. It suggested that they knew that this was causing problems and they really wanted to get on the case very fast, which is in contrast to lots of other things we've seen where, you know, you can, you're waiting forever for things for support to help you.
It is funny. We're so used to Linden's jumping in. We're apparently without thinking. We're not used to them jumping backwards again. But you would have thought, I think, I appreciate that they probably did have to act fast to accommodate Treasury requirements and stuff. But I mean, it just seems typical that they did it without really fully thinking it through. They could have delayed it a week whilst they actually planned a strategy.
Okay, let me put something to you hypothetically here. One of the reasons they may have had to act fast was because there were some illegitimate organizations here, and that if they gave a week's notice, the chances of the FBI and other investigative groups catching up with them before they squirreled their money away elsewhere would have been, zero, because telling them they had a week to hide their funds somewhere else.
Okay, I see. But I actually have another question related to this while we're on the subject, because Honor actually brought it up. The thing at the moment where people earn Lindens, they transfer it to real money, and then they pay their tier with that real money, right? So it's coming out of the Linden pool into real life and then going back into Lindens. Now, why do they have to do that? Why, if they have got a stock of Lindens in World, can't they pay their tier straight by Lindens? Is it Lindens being greedy and needed wanting a commission on the outgoing as well as taking the incoming? Or is there some reason they can't do that? It mystifies me. It's probably a simple answer, but why can't you pay tier in Lindens?
Well, you don't pay VAT on Lindens. You pay VAT on a real currency. And I think it's been part of the thing that they've maintained, that Lindens aren't a real currency. And that has been their protection in the past.
I also suspect there is buried in general accepted accounting principles somewhere, given that virtual currencies are relatively new, this is probably a gray area, but somebody's in an accounting hat at some point decided that Lindens are not a liability from a book's perspective, that until they're converted, right, until the conversion process actually happens, there's no hit on the Linden Lab balance sheet. And so as long as they are kept virtual, they aren't a liability. If you could use them to pay Linden Lab for things, they would then become a liability. And your bookkeeping would be a bigger headache, but your profit, your balance sheet would look very different if the sheer volume of Lindens in World became a liability.
Okay,
but that's a guess.
I'll have to do a course in finance. Or get
accountancy, double entry bookkeeping.
I was tempted to try and get hold of Bayer Sellers on this one, but he isn't working in World so much anymore, so I'm not sure.
I know.
Well, here's a small little factoid. I just kind of tracked back through the postings to the actual Department of Treasury announcement. This is Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, known as FinCEN. And the guidance regarding virtual currencies was issued on March 18th. So if somewhere I saw that there was a 60-day period, a grace period, before they could start slapping fines, and that would put it to May 18th, which was this last week.
I thought it was a 6-month grace period.
Well, I don't know. I'm just saying that the date we have on the release of the guidelines is March 18th. So now the next question is if I can scan through 60 million pages of, actually, it's only 6 pages of
That's a nice
guidelines
bit of
and see
bedtime
if,
reading.
and see if I see a deadline or a date on this. It may be that comes from someplace else entirely.
While you're looking,
According to our expert, the lawyer who analyzes this for Hypergood Business,
Uh-huh.
the modern payment services blogger, it was 6 months in the guidance. So that's why I was surprised that, and a lot of people were surprised that they didn't honor the 30 days terms of service change requirement. You're supposed to have 30 days before terms of service goes into effect. A lot of the exchanges were expecting that to be the case and got slammed and had their avatar suspended. And from the modern payment services guy, there was a 6-month grace period after March where people had time to comply.
Does anybody, I'm sure other people on the panel who are even as older than I am, remember when gambling became illegal in World? Remember?
Yes.
Do you remember what happened when overnight casinos could not operate? I mean, there was a point at which casinos were everywhere on the grid, totally unregulated, unpublished return rates. People just, God knows why people thought they were going to actually win money in those places. But it felt like almost overnight, because of the change in the laws in the United States, you were not allowed to have gambling in World. And at the time, the horror matched the current horror. Because suddenly people lost their real world income and et cetera, et cetera. And people aren't saying that now. They aren't saying they lost the real world income. What they're saying is using a facility which is outside the realm of the official Linden Lab world has become impossible or more difficult. And that didn't happen with 30 days notice either, in spite of terms of service things. I think when it becomes legal or legally imposed on them, it suddenly trumps whatever the terms of service says.
Yeah, that's I hadn't even the 30-day thing hadn't even occurred to me, but that is actually a good point. But yeah, I mean, there is something to be said for short, sharp shock. As long as it's thought out. Sort of Tara mentioned the thing about, if there is a delay and something's phased in slowly, it gives fraudsters and stuff an opportunity to rearrange things rather than be caught. So while I have a question, a sort of vaguely related question to ask while we're all here, actually, especially Maria. I have, like I said, I need to take a course. I have failed to fully understand what Bitcoin, which of course is one of the things that's led to all this greater conversation, is about. I saw a photograph on one of the blogs, Read Write Web or something like that, which showed a picture of a whole load of good old-fashioned supercomputers wired together in order to mine or mint this gold Bitcoin thing. And apparently all these supercomputers together could only manage to manufacture one Bitcoin in, I don't know, a week or something. Right. And I just don't understand what it's about or what's going on. It seems that these Bitcoins aren't easy to get, but then appear out of thin air. They're not...
Yes.
It's crazy. PayPal, I understand, but what's a Bitcoin and how... Maria, you're the ideal person.
I know how to do. First of all, there's two parts of it. First, anything can become a virtual currency. You can trade acorns, seashells, anything, as long as other people are using it. So if a virtual currency is particularly attractive, because it's the hot new thing and everybody jumps on it, its value increases. As soon as it stops being the hot thing, its value decreases. So you can use anything as a trading mechanism. So right now, Bitcoin is the hot thing. The reason it's a hot thing is because it has a very cool technical thing. Instead of mining in any video game for gold, right, or mining outside for actual gold, you're mining a computer algorithm that spits out a number, and it takes longer and longer and longer to get the next number. Like, say, finding the next prime number takes longer and longer as the prime numbers gets bigger. So it's a very cute technical algorithm that mines these numbers. And so because it's such a cute technical algorithm, and the way it works is very clever, it's anonymous and you can exchange these, that a lot of the people who are into the Ayn Rand anti-government, totally independent crowd got really, really into this because it's a way to create a secure, anonymous virtual currency in a very cute technical way that works really well. So now here's the problem that I see with it. So Bitcoin, very cute, very technical, very clever, very hot. Everybody's buying and selling them, and the value of it goes way up. Nothing backs it. There's no government backing, no corporate backing of it. So say somebody comes out with Bitcoin version 2, which is the same exact algorithm, but in a different color. And say a big celebrity gets behind it. So it's all the same cool technical stuff as the first Bitcoin, plus a cool celebrities behind it, and everyone switches over. There is nothing behind Bitcoin to keep people from switching away. It's like the Facebook, MySpace kind of thing. You go where everybody is, but there's nothing keeping you locked into the old one. So with traditional currencies like the US dollar, you kind of locked in because you can only pay your taxes with US dollars. It's government mandate, so it's kind of tied into the entire strength of the U.S. economy. So you have some fluctuations, and people are complaining about the fluctuation of real currencies, but the fluctuation of real currencies are tiny compared to the fluctuation in Bitcoin and social networks, because they're based on social fads, which come and go extremely rapidly. So you've seen the value of Bitcoin go from pennies to hundreds of dollars, back down, back up again in a matter of days, because there's no anchor to it at all. So this is the big worry about using Bitcoins for anything significant, that it's not anchored. So when the fad is gone, what do you have left? You don't have a company behind it like Second Life or Apple or Facebook with their credits, or the frequent flyer miles. There's an airline company behind them. With mobile minutes that people use as currency, you can use them for mobile phone calls, in the country where you're doing this. With the Bitcoin, once the fad is over and everyone switches to Bitcoin Blue or Bitcoin Orange, there is nothing left to do with it. You can't spend it on anything, because if people switch, they switch. There's nothing keeping them. So that's the big problem with it. The reason that it's getting all this hype is because I mentioned the political aspects of it. People think it's really cool. And finally, the people who are generating Bitcoins need to sell them to somebody. So they're hyping up and there's a lot of, because the exchanges are not regulated, which is why the regulators are looking at this, people can drive up the price of Bitcoins artificially by trading back and forth with one another. Then they can sell a big bunch of them, drive the price down, buy up a bunch. So a lot of speculation, zero oversight, a lot of speculation. And the people who are speculating on it want more people to come in, because if you are not ripping people off with Bitcoins, then you're being ripped off with Bitcoins right now, because there's nothing real you can do with them. Basically.
I had a wonderful feeling it was a bit like this, because I just couldn't quite figure it out at all. I knew it was the buzzword, but I wasn't going to find time to research the inside of this. So you really put it in its place there, I think, actually.
Now, as a mathematician, I love the algorithm behind it. Yeah. And I think it would be really cool if a big institution were to step up and say, we're going to back this, so that at the end of the day, once the fad is over, you can still use it for something real. And I think that would be really nice. Linden Lab could do that. Anybody could do that. A government could do it if they wanted to. I think Canada's trying out a pilot project with something similar. But you need to have some kind of anchor to it at the end of the day. Purely social value is not enough. Like any social network can tell you, social fads come and social fads go.
Well, I've often thought that really, in the same way that the internet was meant to be a democratizing global phenomenon, which is increasingly being taken over by national interests in advertising. But, there ought to be an international virtual currency. Now, that's not to say that you just dream it up and keep all your money online. But, I mean, for example, if PayPal decided to create a PayPal Linden. In other words, you could have your money in US dollars or in UK pounds or whatever, or you could choose to keep it in this virtual currency. And, when it's time to draw it out, you then convert it to local currency. I'm wondering how long it will become before something like that exists. But then you come down to regulation. You would have to have an international system regulating that currency, beyond national borders. So it's the sort of thing that I think could take a kind of long while.
We have that with the euro. It's a virtual currency that people switched away, replaced national currencies.
Yeah.
But getting countries together to back something like this, it'll take generations. And right now with the political climate, I don't think we're going to see anything cross-border coming in soon. People want control over their own financial systems, and allowing a major third-party currency to play in your financial system means giving up control. And governments are very, very hesitant to do that, sometimes with good reason, as we've seen with some of the Europe financial problems. When you give up control over your country's currency, you give up control over a lot of the things you can do to manage the economy.
Indeed. Well, we've entered the whole minefield here. I think I closed last week's show on the currency bit with I can see this is going to run and run, I said, and I think this is probably the case. I'm sure we're going to be coming back to this, but I think it's about time we shifted today's agenda into a few other things. Now, I know both Saffia and Persia are pushed for time today, so we're very open-ended here. We'll go on for hours if we have to, but
one thing I wanted to add on this topic before we go is alternatives to Second Life marketplaces. Is there any possibility in the other grids for people to make money? So I wanted to throw that out, especially with the Kitely setting up their new marketplace.
Well, my feeling is this is sort of related to something I'm always saying, and that is, if you view the hypergrid, it is not one grid. But it is potentially so interconnected that you can view it as a grid. And people criticize a lot of open sims. Oh, they're small affairs. We can't do much there or whatever. But then I say, well, no, if you're putting on an event and people can hypergrid in, you've got a massive potential audience, maybe not as big as Second Life, but you've got to send your notices across the hypergrid, and people have to cross grids to get in instead of the normal teleport in Second Life. But I've always felt one of the best ways to view OpenSim is via the hypergrid, and consider it a mass in the same way that we've used Second Life's walled garden as a mass. And so, to me, the hypergrid and OpenSims are, developing, and we'll maybe come back to this in a while. Sometimes they're slowing down, sometimes they're really taking off, whatever. But if you view the people using the hypergrid as a whole, as a mass, then I think you can certainly have an economy that will work across the hypergrid and involve some kind of the equivalent of Linden. I mean, we've already got OSC and a few others, I think, because at the moment it does tend to work on sort of free for all. I mean, I downloaded. In fact, this is going to be a very good segue into Persia. I downloaded this morning from Linda McKelly's site. Is it OpenSim Questions? Yeah. She's produced, I don't know, there were about 100 downloads in the space of an hour today, all of which were animations for OpenSim. in zip files. So I downloaded them all and kept them in my assets for future use.
Okay, what happened with Linda Kelly? She has a site up, lindakelly.com, with all these animations on it, a bunch of a couple of dozen OR files, IR files, complete regions. She shut everything down yesterday.
Yeah.
So the reason people were uploading it to OpenSim Creations is to preserve it, because she was shutting it down. And but somebody else has taken over the site. It's back up again, so you can go back there now and find all her stuff again.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, that was news we should have mentioned. Yeah. But I did get these from that site today, and the interesting thing was, as I was downloading them, I thought, well, here's a nice stock of animations. I can take them into Jacadia. I can take them into OpenSim Grid, another grid that I'll be in shortly, and they are assets. Now I'm getting them for free, so there's no money involved, but they are nevertheless assets, and they are assets for the entire hypergrid. And I can't sell them on, obviously, because I got them for free. But I mean, I can distribute them. But
you can sell them on. She allows people to sell them on. It's licensed CC0, so you can sell them if you wanted to.
Okay, maybe I'll think about it.
I don't know. But, nice,
but yeah, I suddenly thought, I was getting all this stuff, and I suddenly thought, well, if there'd been 10 Lindas each, I'd probably have got them too. It's it seems to me it's quite viable for a currency, to be working there. In fact, I think it's inevitable. Exactly how that currency, interestingly enough, will be controlled under the same U.S. Treasury. I mean, a lot of grids aren't in America, so they have a bit of an advantage. They don't have to comply with the U.S. Treasury. But if you had a grid-wide currency on OpenSim, I could see that Sims with American servers would, of course, be obligated to go with this U.S. Treasury stuff. Other Sims without American servers elsewhere would probably have different guidelines they have to follow. So I wonder how, bearing in mind what we've been talking today, in fact, how manageable that might be. Because you're not dealing with one company when you're dealing with the hypergrid. You're dealing with a system, rather like HTML, rather like the web, and you're dealing with multiple grids in different locations. So as much as
there's another factor, Mel, and that is, say a grid is based in the UK, and they're also operating servers in the US. But if they're leasing their servers, or they're leasing server service, which is the typical thing to do, they're still based in the UK. If they have an office in the US, then all bets are off. But using services available in the US, that would not put them under, whoever runs the servers is under U.S. regulations. But
no, it gets worse than that. It has to do with where your customers are based. If you're selling stuff to American customers, there are some American laws you have to comply with. Kitely was just into this. Kitely's an Israeli company, and they're setting up their big marketplace. It's going to be cross-grid, so you can use Kitely credits to shop for, any grid and use their marketplace. It's going to go live this summer, and they spent quite a bit of time with lawyers dealing with this. And because of the financial currency issue, they decided to make Kitely credits a closed loop currency where you cannot redeem it. But what merchants can do instead is they can take their payments directly in dollars through PayPal on their marketplace. So merchants have a choice of how to accept their credits. And they can use their Kitely credits to pay for tier, to pay for any of their expenses in Kitely. So they're trying to kind of straddle it.
Okay.
So that's what they're doing. Now with Avanation, their currencies trade on third-party exchanges. They're based in the UK. I think they're simply too small for people to worry about right now. Second Life is a high-profile company that's been in the news. Avanation is so tiny, I don't think any regulator ever has heard of it. So I think it will take years for regulators to catch on that there's small OpenSim grid. I don't think they've heard of OpenSim. So there's quite a bit of leeway there. Kitely is just, I think Kitely plans to go big very fast, so they're making sure all their T's are crossed and I's are dotted.
I think this is a case, to quote the phrase, only time will tell.
Yes, yes.
It is the beauty of, actually, it's wonderful thing about OpenSIM and the hypergrid. There are a lot of small independent operators involved in this, and yes, they're not in the limelight yet, but they are, as a collective force, they are considerable. A power base for the future, as it were. I know Persia has to depart very shortly, so I'd like to bring her back into the conversation. I did mention that my thoughts on that were triggered by downloading a lot of animations this morning. But Persia does actually work with Vista Animations, I know, who are a money-making business in Second Life, as far as I know. And they specialize in animations, don't they, Persia? So maybe you'd like to tell us a bit about that.
They do. I mean, I think majority certainly of Second Life users are obviously going to be aware of Vista Animations. Vista Barnes, obviously, the CEO is quite famous on this grid in particular, though he does actually work on some other grids too, same company. So he's cross-grid already. But yeah, I mean, we were talking earlier, weren't we, about mocap technology in terms of animation? Yeah, just from my perspective, Vista, I happen to handle his media and his PR. That's my role. Let me put it out there right now. I don't do anything vaguely technical. I can just about res a prem in SL after nearly 5 years of being in here, and I'm actually quite proud of that fact.
And wear an animation.
And wear a Vista animation. And in fact, I was listening to you, Mal, when you were talking earlier about downloading these animations and uploading them to the various grids that you're on, and I was sat here in shock and awe because I'm thinking, I just wouldn't have a clue how to do that. And I suppose that is also the majority of SL users. They're a bit like me, where they can buy a box, unpack it, wear it, and I suppose that's the main market for Vista Animations, and yes, he's been using mocap for a while, but he's just invested quite significantly in real life because it is a real life company, also one obviously that is going to be having to assess, if you like, this whole third-party Linden exchange system, and he released his brand new first full mocap AO the other day, 2 days ago, in fact, and it's going down storm in terms of realism for sure. So.
Well, I've been. It's a different company. Abramations, I think, is the main AO I wear. But I've had that loaded with motion capture for a year or so, and I just look at myself on camera and it's like looking in the mirror. I think, oh yeah, my moves are cool. That's much better than the built-in animations. So it does make a difference. In fact, somebody I work with over here in the UK has invested in the mocap suit. The ones you record, the BVH files for the animations with. But there is so much more now. The intro clip we shared, where Draxter was, I forget which company it was he interviewed in that clip, actually, but clearly the guy there and his wife had this whole room set up, and it wasn't a matter of wearing motion capture suits. They had cameras at all sorts of angles that were obviously interpreting movement and then mixing it all together to create the animation. So, and then of course, people are worried that if we get things like Microsoft's Kinect, or better still, the Leap device, will allow you to control movements in some ways. So who needs an animation if you can flap your hands and convince people you really are flapping your hands?
I still think there's going to be that market for people who aren't going to be investing in all this new tech, if you like, within SL, where buying, unpacking, wearing is basically the extent of what they want to do. Because bear in mind, for most people, SL is free time. They want to log in. They want to get going.
Yeah.
as soon as possible. So
No, I
this-
would thoroughly agree with that. In fact, you know, the more I think about some of this new technology, the more obstacles there are. I mean, if I was dancing at the Second Life concert and using gestures in real life, you know, how far would I actually have to stand up and move away from the camera? Would I actually have to do the dance in the room while I'm watching? And more to the point, if I wanted to engage in text chat, how on earth would I be doing it while I'm doing the dance? So, no, I actually agree. I mean, the platform, the Second Life is a platform, and by extension, OpenSim for most things. I think you want to rely on these things you can just wear, and you know, join the immersion by, you know, varying what you wear or switching a different button on your AO on. It seems the most natural way to do it. You know, there are obviously technical, real world things going on where maybe the motion capture is very important. I mean, I love seeing people perform dance in Second Life. I mean, dance on stage. And, you know, some of them do a really good job of synchronizing quite complex mocap or otherwise, you know, to do the ballet or whatever it is. And I can see that, you know, with full motion capture transmitted straight to an avatar, for example, with in the future, it would enhance performance and things like that. But as you say, those aren't the punters in the audience who simply want to put, you know, strap on an animation and wear it to dance. I think they're always, yeah, so to speak. Yeah,
Samity just made a really good comment actually on the live feed as well about you know, virtual abilities, and that's the other great thing about, you know, this mocap in terms of realism for a lot of people as well that maybe can't dance in real life for whatever reason, either physical or whatever. You know, it's the freedom they can have as well by being able to like use these AOs in this instance, because that's all I'm qualified to talk about. It's so lovely. I mean, I meet fans of Vista all the time who are like, thank you, because, you know, you've added freedom to my life via Second Life. And obviously with ever increasing breakthroughs in technology, including mocap, and it's just improving constantly and adding layers and layers of realism for all of us, including us that can just literally click where and activate a HUD and you know.
Yeah. Well, it's the beauty of virtual platforms, you know, being the empowerment that brings. I mean, you know, there are, you know, I'll go into the disability thing very briefly. I mean, there are those people, I don't know, maybe they're wheelchair bound in real life, and they love being able to get up and dance in World as if they weren't wheelchair bound. There are others, however, who, for their own reasons, want to be represented in World still in wheelchairs. And I know Virtual Ability has a wheelchair that you wear, but it has built-in animations. So it's a bit like, you know, you have Paralympics and things like that, where the dance, it's actually the wheelchair that dances, but you're driving it, if you see what I mean. And so there's something for them too, you know. So somebody can come in as an avatar in a virtual wheelchair and dance, or they can be in a wheelchair in real life, and they can choose to come in and dance as a fully danceable avatar. So you've got, you know, both of these options are open, and that is the wonderful thing. You know, you can approach it from however you want, really. It's all fascinating stuff. And well, yeah, I don't know how many of you watched the intro before we came to this part of the show, but there was Philip Rosedale's new thing, Hi-Fi, and they had a clip where they were wearing their Google Glass that they've got, and they were manipulating an avatar, moving an avatar through their eyesight in the Google Glass. Which, you know, is just we you know, so much happening at once here on the interfacing front. I don't really know where some of these things are going, but we will see. Anyway, let's round up. I'm gonna well, I think we're sort of reaching the end of the show anyway, actually. So let's start with Well, let's start with you, Persia. Any other thoughts at the moment on your mind? Anything coming up that's exciting that we haven't discussed already? Or?
I have to kind of almost mentally schedule my SL now because I I'm obviously editor of Best of Second Life magazine here as well in SL. So that's always like the monthly hamster wheel for me. You know, we publish on the 1st, and then I have a couple of days off thinking about that before it all starts again, as I'm so sure Saffia will agree with me.
I'm like that. I can't. I keep telling people, you know, all these people who don't know where they're coming or going in Second Life. Haven't you ever heard of a desktop diary that pings at you? You know, because I rule my life by it. You know, I know some of it's the same thing again and again every week at certain times, but you know, I sometimes need the prompts, and you know, you fit in the other stuff in between.
That's exactly what I do. But in terms of things that are coming up for me, I do have to say I am very excited about next issue, Bottle magazine, on the 1st of June. I cannot say anything about it, but after working there for 4 years, quite literally probably one of my most favourite issues ever, due on June the 1st. And of course, Home and Garden Expo. Attend and spend, as I'm telling everybody, please, because it's literally for such a good cause. So thank you for giving me the platform to rave.
This is great. We're getting a knack of poetic lines here today, aren't we? Attend and spend. That's a good one. Yeah, very good. Home and Garden. Attend and spend. We'll be saying that all summer, I think, for relay. Right. Honor.
Yes.
Let
me tell you about two things.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Quickly, and I'll come back on the second one at a future date. We'll spend some time talking about it. The first is that the upcoming SL10B community celebration, because of course Second Life is turning 10 in June. If you go to slcommunitycelebration.com, you have less than 24 hours to volunteer. You want to do this, especially, I mean, you could be 2 days old, you could be 6 years old, you could be 10 years old. But to get involved, which is one of the most fabulous things you can do in World, is be part of a community celebration. It's a very exciting thing to do, but I just wanted to let you know you have very little time left to volunteer. Please do it.
Yeah, we ran the trailer for that at the beginning of the show, and we'll be repeating it at the end. So quite literally tomorrow is the deadline for most applications. So
yes, so please do that. The second thing I'll give you a teaser on, if you were around 2 years ago, you might remember Avatar Games, which was one of the more surreal, insane things that ever take place on the grid. And we had meant to, yes, Tara would remember. We intended to start up again in April, and because I've been under the weather, nothing has happened, but that's entirely my fault. It is coming up. It will be happening. Some differences this year. For one thing, we will have training sessions, so people will be able to come and get used to the course, because it's truly strange. But I'll have more coming up. But you can join the Linden Endowment for the Arts Inworld group, and you'll get notices, and watch my blog. You'll get notices. But Avatar Games is coming back.
Oh, snail races eat your heart out, eh?
Well, we're not. We try very hard not to compete head to head with them, because it's an entirely different thing. Yeah. But the Avatar Games is fun.
Yeah, we'll have you back on the whole show to explore that.
Good.
I think that sounds wonderful. I jumped over to you, actually. I had meant to ask Persia one final thing. How long is that Ascension build going to be around for that I filmed earlier? Or have we lost Persia now?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I was talking to myself.
Oh, I know that feeling. Yeah, I was just wondering how long Ascension's going to be up for. The thing I forgot to ask.
Ascension. I believe it is. I mean, obviously, my input into that is purely it's my SL partner sim. and obviously I've been helping with PR as well, because Mantis is Carrie Leckerbush in real life, who is quite a well-known techno DJ and record producer. So what's been really good is that we've been dragging forcibly lots of his fans from real life into SL.
Oh, wonderful.
We've really used it as an opportunity, if you like, to showcase Second Life and certainly virtual art to an audience that probably have just never heard of it before, never experienced it. So he's been utilizing all his real life networks, and being very upfront about, I am Mantiso. I'm Carrie Leckerbush real life, but I'm Mantiso in SL. Log in, create an account, come and see it. So it's
a gorgeous build. I mean, it's a truly stunning build.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes.
I'll pass it on.
I was. Oh yeah, I was there yesterday in TB Tara, and I think you were still there when I left, weren't you?
I think I was. Yes, I was there for a while longer, poking around and exploring
and hunting,
finding orbs.
Yeah, finding the orbs. Yeah.
Well, obviously he's really into music. That's what he does for his real life work. But he's also very much into kind of ancient myth and also futurism to a certain extent. So he's kind of. It's like he's just thrown his imagination for everyone to see in one place in SL. And I believe Honor is probably better than me to answer this. It runs until the end of June, I think.
Yes, I believe that's the date, or just a little bit into July. But you really need to go see it. It's stunning. I saw it when it was under construction initially and was just blown away. It's gorgeous.
Well, he's in Holland tonight, real life, doing a techno DJ set in Amsterdam, but he's back tomorrow, so I'll pass that on. Thank you, Anna.
No problem.
I'm just reading Dirk McKinnon in the TV chat room saying, "Can I put my plug in for Virtual World Best Practices in July?" We did have Felon on the other week, and we will have Felon back shortly. But yes, of course, I think it's the third week in July. Virtual World Best Practices. It's the week after the Relay for Life telethon.
It's July 24th to 27th for virtual practices and best.
That's it.
Relay for Life weekend now.
No, it's the weekend after Relay for Life weekend.
Yes, but not Relay for Life telethon.
Yeah. But I did say both today. Relay for Life telethon weekend. Relay 5 goes on and on and on, but the telethon bit is only 1 week.
Relay for Life weekend.
Yeah,
I'd also like to second that plug for Virtual World Best Practices. It's a fabulous conference. It's extremely well done. And people who are Inworld who have never attended anything, drop in there just to see what's going on, because it's fabulous.
And I might as well say we are broadcasting it this year.
Good.
Meta World Broadcasting. But I mean, we'll be working with maybe Treat if they want to, but Metaverse TV as well, and be bringing the whole lot on live stream. Probably not on this channel. We're probably going to form a special channel for it, but if they can't make it in world, they'll be able to see it all live in its glorious Avatar Technicolor online. Yeah, so that's good. Any other venues, new builds, stuff like that on there that we should be checking out before we go? Spring to mind.
Lots of them. I saw one this morning that I blogged, and I started my blog post by saying that if you're one of those people who believes fusion is a combination, for example, of French cuisine with alien or with Asian twists, then Second Life is going to blow your mind, because I went to a sim this morning which has a number of our favorite themes. It's Alice in Wonderland, it's steampunk, it's role play, it's combat, it's romance, and it's dance. And by the way, there's a maze in the middle of it, and it's one of the most extraordinary places I've ever been. And by the way, it's on a sim called Goth. So, and you'd think it looked a little, that it wouldn't work, but it actually does. So yeah, drop into Goth and see what happens when people combine all of their influences.
Yeah, I know. I will. I've read that blog. Isn't there a sort of thing about jumping down the rabbit hole? And you got there's a deadline on this, isn't there?
Well, the deadline was about the SL10B applications. But yes, it was like, how people say they've jumped down the rabbit hole because the world just looks so strange around them, or it's Twilight Zone-ish. Well, that's what happened when I landed on Goth and discovered this very strange world around me, but it works.
Okay, I'm going to get my camera out and do a quick voiceover for next week if I can get to golf. I saw your photos, so no further introduction is needed, really. As usual, I look at the photos on your blog. You usually speak a picture tells 1,000 stories, whatever.
Thanks.
Yeah, so okay, I'll be hopping over there. Saffia, anything else coming up that we haven't covered?
Well, there are two key hunts closing today. So if you have started them but haven't finished, you should rush round now. And they're both Mad P. There's the Lost Treasure of the Incas, and the Fantasy Fair hunt finally comes to an end today as well. That was done by Mad P, written by David Abbott. So those are finishing today. So if you are a hunter and you've made a start on them, go and finish them today, because you don't get the prizes till the end. But when you get the prizes, they are absolutely fantastic.
Mad P's always are. I can't believe it's a month extension of me, because it was a month extension on Fantasy Fair, wasn't it? For the
No. It was always planned to be mid-May. It's just kind of 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I think, after the main fair, but it's come to an end now.
It just seems to have happened so quickly.
Yeah, I think I should add, I mean, I don't know how much the Home and Garden Expo is likely to make. They will have readable auctions, and there's always boost the price. But I did have a look at the kiosks at Fantasy Fair today, and they are 9,100,000 at the moment.
Wow.
Wow. Wow. For a genre fair to do that kind of money, I think it's just so amazing.
It is. That's great. And when it all goes to a good cause too, it's even more rewarding.
So now we've got to go for the Home and Garden Expo and sell some of those horses and things, because that's where the money comes from at Home and Garden, I think.
It was a horse that broke the records, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was something like a 2 million, Lyndon, for a horse last time.
Yeah,
that's right.
My Kingdom for a horse.
Christmas Expo. Yeah, quite. Hell of a lot of tear for a horse.
Indeed. Okay, Maria, before you go, any current news and things you'd like to impart with us? I know, obviously, I follow your blog all the while, so I know we had a post about grid outages, hurt traffic, and slow growth.
Yeah, well,
all sorts of things.
Metropolis is back up, so that was the big grid that had the outage. So you can go back on there now, and they've totally revamped all the servers, so they're faster now and work better, according to reports. What else? The Kitely Marketplace is being developed. It's got a freebie offer right now, so people can upload their content for free if they want to sell it. And if you get approval, if they like what you upload, you can get all your uploads for. All uploads on Kitely is free. But I'm talking about listing fees on the marketplace. If they like what you're doing, they can make you a premium merchant and give you all your listings free until it goes live, which is a great deal. So if you're looking for an extra place to distribute your content that you already have, the free uploads, the free listings is a really great deal. So it's a no-risk way to try a pretty major OpenSim grid. And Kitely has a thing they're planning where they will deliver the content directly to people's inventories to any grid. So
Oh, right.
yeah, so they'll start out with hypergrid first, hypergrid enabled grids. Then they plan to expand this to other grids as well. Now, Kitely often takes longer than they say to do things, but they do things extremely well. So their systems are very smooth, very nicely designed. The user interfaces are great. So Kitely has been growing slowly, but it has been growing very steadily over these years. They're now the second largest grid by land area. They're one of the top 10 grids by popularity. And given the fact that the land prices are so cheap, a lot of educators and creative types are moving over. So it's a good place to have a second store set up. I mean, you wouldn't be your primary source of income because it's still small compared to Second Life. But if you're looking to diversify a little bit, you have full control over your content in terms of whether it stays on a grid or leaves. It has the first grid with the export permission. So if you want your content to leave, you can charge extra for it and allow people to take it elsewhere. Or you can lock it down to just that grid so people can't export it, can't download it, can't make a backup of it, nothing. So it's very secure. It's one of the most secure grids and most secure, lowest price, and really one of the highest performance grids. You get 100 avatars and 100,000 prims per region. So it's a good thing to try out if you're a merchant looking for a backup plan.
It's got a totally different model from most
Very
sims, so it's a very good starter system, especially I think. And
sorry.
Yeah, come on, Saffia.
I was going to say, can I mention something else that's happening on a different kind of grid, which is Cloud Party?
Oh, yes.
They've got a big art competition there to celebrate their first anniversary. And anyone who enters will be given free studio space to construct their art. And the top prize, admittedly, it's going to be given in Cloud Party currency, is going to be, the prizes are totaling $1,000 US.
Oh, so
yeah, it will be given in Cloud Party currency, so you kind of spend in world, I guess. But
well, hopefully they've
still,
got enough.
That's
They've got enough product for you to spend £1,000 on it. Oh no, that's great. Yeah, Cloud Party is certainly coming along these days, especially now I can get in without going through Facebook.
Yeah.
My little applaud there. Actually, Maria, didn't I hear somewhere that the Kitely marketplace is actually aren't they planning to make their stuff available in Second Life as well? Although presumably that will have to comply with what you can.
I do not know. I have not heard that. I do know that traditional XML content, if you get it in XML form, you can upload it to Second Life through Imprudence.
Yeah.
So all the stuff on OpenSim Creations or the Linda Kelly stuff, you can download it and bring it into Second Life if you wanted to.
Yeah.
So if they have an XML option, then I can see them bringing it into Second Life. I have not heard of them selling directly into Second Life. Does Second Life allow access by third-party marketplaces?
Well, they used to, and then they bought them all.
Yeah.
They bought them all up. But I think there is a mechanism. For doing that. Although with all the currency changes, who knows? So
right.
No, it isn't a direct one, Mal. It would be what Maria describes. I think of uploading.
Yeah.
In a format, yourself, rather than something that would be immediately into your inventory when you purchased it.
Yeah, so it's a bit like the animation thing. It's easy to just wear one, but if you really want to, you can upload them too. Okay. Well, I think that's it. The last thing, I guess, is to go to Tara for your roundup.
Well, everything is has been splendidly covered today. I was going to mention the less than 24 hours to get those applications in for the 10th birthday community celebration. And I promise this week I'm really going to make it a priority to get this this Oculus Rift plugged in.
Yeah, yes. We look forward to your experiences with that. I mean, apart from the fact you'll have to go to bed to use it, or at least lie down. But
Well, no. I'll manage. I can hold my head up.
just about. Okay, wonderful stuff. Okay, so I think that really brings us to the end of the Inworld review part this week. Do stay tuned if you're watching this live, because Metaverse Week in Review continues with about another 2 hours of machinima. Various arts and music clips and a couple of machinima features, depending on what we got time to get in. The rest we'll have to wait for next week, as usual. I'd like to thank everybody who's joined us today. Saffia Widdershins, as always. Thank you, Saffia.
Pleasure, Mel.
Another regular of ours, of course, Honor McMillan. Another day, another destination. And I hope we'll see you soon, Honor, and especially we'll get you back for the
We'll talk about the games.
The
Avatar games.
The Avatar games. Yes, that's going to be right. Yes, got to go in the diary. And thank you to Persia Bravin. Wonderful to see you again. I keep forgetting you. I keep forgetting you've got a delightful English voice to join me.
No, there's three Brits today. I raised my cup of tea to you all.
I've actually been having a spirited and lively discussion in group chat about PIMS.
Oh. I want one now.
Actually, on the home and garden chat, we've been discussing it, because I recently corrupted the Prim Perfect designer, Winona Weifel, who's also a designer of Prime Home and Furniture.
Yeah, really good designer, Winona.
Really good designer, and brilliant designer for Prim Perfect, of course. And she came over to the UK and we met up, and I introduced her to PIMS.
It's a lethal drink. Lethal drink.
They make a perfect sponsor for something, though, wouldn't they? You know, time for PIMS, time for Prims, or something.
Definitely.
Are they allowed to sell alcohol in World? I don't know, but yeah, that'd be a good one. Anyway, finally, also thanks to Maria Korolov for joining us, especially at such short notice. It's been great to have you. Mine of information, lots of explanations that we humble ones do lesser understand.
Well, I love being here, and I'd love to come back anytime.
Okay, well, I'll take you up on that. Because when it comes to the hypergrid and the metaverse and things, then you are the most obvious person to go to.
It's so exciting right now. I'm just all the Oculus Rift stuff. I can't wait.
Neither can all of us. We're impatient lots here, you know. We just can't wait for next week's show because we want to have loads and loads of great news stuff to share with you. Okay, well, thank you everybody for watching. If you're watching this in replay, it's goodbye. But if you're watching this live, please stay with Real Virtualities and the Metaverse Week in Review, because we've got some great sort of arts, music, and storytelling machinima to come your way. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody again, and we will see you same time, same place, hopefully, next week. Bye for now.